Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn a very interesting lesson of Standard 8 1.2. The title is Dick Whittington and his cat. In this story, the writer has mentioned that a person who faces the difficulties finally gets success. In his lifetime, Dick suffered a lot and he faced many difficulties, but finally he became a very rich man and a successful person in his life. Though he was poor, though he was orphan, though he was not getting the daily necessities, in those days also he was innocent. He remained honest. He worked hard. Students, we will do some activities on page number 5. The first activity is of successful personalities. Discuss the following in groups and write dances. Look at the pictures. Name the world famous personalities who reached great heights from humble circumstances. The first photograph is of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The second photograph is of Abraham Lincoln. And the third photograph is of Charlie Chaplin. And the last photograph is of Kalpana Chawla. So these are the 4 personalities who reached at great heights. Though the situation in their childhood was not that much comfortable, but they worked hard, they faced the difficulties and solved their problems. See the next activity, that is gauge the type of hardships. They must have faced in their childhood and youth. Means when these great people were children and even at the age of youth, what hardships have they faced? Answer: the first, that is poverty. It means they were from a poor family. The second point is lack of support. The third point, social disapproval. Fourth point, lack of opportunities. Means in those days there were very less opportunities. Though the opportunities were less, though the society disapproved them, though nobody supported them, there was a shortage, lack of support, but they worked hard. We will see the next question. What wrong qualities possessed by them could have helped them to achieve success and fame all over? The strong qualities are mentioned in the following answer. The first, strong willpower. The second, optimism. The third, sincerity. And the last is hard work. These are the strong qualities which motivated them to work hard to achieve their success. Because of these 4 qualities, they reached at their final goal. The first, strong willpower. So they had a great willpower, so that they have not taken the rest. Even some of these great people have worked more than 18 hours, and they know that knowledge is the key to success. To following that, they have studied hard, they worked hard. See the next question, that is, how do stories or biographies of such famous people help youngsters? It means, how do the youngsters get inspiration from such type of stories and the biographies of such famous people? The answer: first, they help youngsters to look at the positively. So by reading, by listening such type of stories, the youngsters get the idea to look at their life positively. They remove the negative thoughts from their mind. The second point is they inspire the youth. The youth gets the inspiration, motivation, encouragement. The third point is they help them find answers to questions. Everybody has difficulties, questions, but here such stories, biographies help us to get the answers, though the questions are difficult. And today we are going to learn the second lesson of Standard 8, Dick Whittington and his cat. According to the title, we come to know that there are two characters. They are Dick Whittington and the second character is his cat. There was once a poor boy called Dick Whittington, lived in a small village in the south of England. It shows that in the south of England there is a small village where a small boy lived who was poor, who was not having good kind of wealth. His name was Dick Whittington. He had no proper home, for both his parents had died and he was unkindly treated by many of the villagers. It means Dick Whittington had no proper home. He was not having a good kind of home. There were two reasons behind this. The first reason, his parents had passed away. And the second reason, the villagers, most of the villagers of the same village did not treat him kindly, mercifully, with sympathy. One day, Dick overheard someone say that the streets of London were paved with gold, and he decided that he would go there at once and pick his fortune up in gold pieces from the streets. Means Dick overheard. Means what? When the people were talking, he got the sound that somebody said the streets of London were paved with gold. Paved with gold is a phrase. Literally the meaning of the word is gold is spread on the road of London. The roads of London were covered with gold. But the actual meaning of this phrase was the streets of London, the city of London was rich. The person who goes there and tries to study, work hard, will get a lot of wealth. And that is why Dick Whittington decided that he will go to London. See, the auxiliary is used would. He would go to London. It is his wish to go to London and pick his fortune, his luck up and become rich, so that the people will treat him properly, kindly, mercifully, with sympathy if he were rich. That is why he took the decision to go to London. Now we will see the next paragraph. It is, so young Dick. Young means small. Dick set out to walk to London. Set out means start. So in this way he started his journey to London on foot, that is by walking. He had not gone far when a man in a cart stopped and asked him if he was running away from home. When Dick Whittington started his journey After a little distance, a carterman. Carterman means one who was riding in a bullock cart. That carterman stopped Dick Whittington and asked whether he was running away from his home. So Dick answered to the carterman, I am on my way to London to find my fortune. What is his reply? That I am on my way to London means I am going to London for the purpose of finding my fortune. Fortune, that is luck. I am going to London myself, said the carter. Jump up here beside me and we will journey together. After listening Dick's reply, the carter offered Dick Whittington to come with him to London. And he said, I am going to London myself. Jump up here beside me and we will start our traveling together. In this way, Dick went to London. They arrived in London just before nightfall, and the carter left Dick and made his way to an inn. Nightfall in the evening time, late in the evening, before the night. They arrived. Arrived means came. They came in London just before nightfall, means it was late evening, and the carterman left Dick. He allowed Dick to get down from the cart and then he went ahead to an inn. Inn means a restaurant. Poor Dick stood alone and looked around him in dismay. Dick was a poor boy. He was alone there. Alone means lonely. Why did it say lonely or alone? Though there were so many people, but Dick did not identify anyone there. He did not recognize anyone there. And the people of London were also not knowing him. It means Dick was a stranger to them. And they were also unfamiliar to Dick. That's why Dick stood alone and looked around him in dismay. See, the meaning of dismay is given there. It means great disappointment, nervousness. So Dick became very nervous. Where was all that fine gold? He asked to himself. That where was the gold? What I heard in my small village that the streets of London were paved with gold, were covered with gold. And when I reached here, I saw that there was no gold. So he started looking for the gold. But what he could see, there were dirty streets and lots of unfriendly people. Do you understand what he could see there? There were so many people, but they were unfriendly. They were not having any kind of sympathy to Dick. And the streets were dirty. He had nowhere to sleep, and in the end, he spent the night in the corner of an alley where he hoped he would come to no harm. It means Dick had nowhere to sleep. It means there was no place where Dick could sleep at night. And that is why finally at the end Dick decided to spend the night in the corner of an alley. Alley, the meaning is given in the textbook. It means a narrow passage between or behind buildings. It means the open space between the two buildings or behind the building. At that open space, Dick spent the night where he hoped. Hoped means expected. He had a wish. He anticipated he would come to no harm. It means he thought that the place was safe for him. There would be no harm or no danger for him if he sleeps there. By thinking this, Dick Whittington spent the night in the corner of an alley. So students, up to this we come to know that the situation of Dick was very miserable. He suffered a lot. So do you know why? Because he was totally stranger to the city. The next morning, Dick woke up cold, miserable and very hungry. So anyhow, he spent the night in the corner of an alley, and when he got up next morning, he found himself that he was cold. Maybe the winter season, the temperature was very low and he was very hungry. And his condition was miserable. Miserable, full of trouble. He wandered around begging for food. But again and again people shouted at him. When he was very hungry, he started wandering here and there. Why he started wandering here and there? Because he was hungry and he was in search of food. He wanted to have some food. So he started looking here and there. But repeatedly people shouted at him. People treated him angrily. Some remarks are given here. What people said? They said, "Go away, you lazy fellow." What the people said? "Go away, you lazy fellow, you lazy boy. Go away. Be off with you. Be off with you. Don't come here, go far from us," and aimed angry blows at his head. The people were so angry, they were not ready to help Dick Whittington. They aimed angry blows to him. That is why finally at the end, last, he collapsed in the street and lay there. Collapsed means he fell down and he laid there. So why he laid there? The reason, he became too weak to look for food. It means he was unable to ask, to request for the food also. So there was no other option in front of him except laying there helplessly. So this one was the situation of Dick Whittington. By chance, Dick had fallen in front of a house belonging to a rich merchant called Mr. Fitzwarren. So see, in this situation, the luck, the fate, the fortune, the good luck of Dick Whittington, that where he laid, where he collapsed. So by chance, it was the house of a rich merchant. Rich means wealthy, was having a lot of wealth. Merchant means a businessman whose name was Mr. Fitzwarren. The cook was trying to drive Dick away. In this sentence, to drive is the infinitive. So when the cook was trying to drive Dick away, at the same moment, Mr. Fitzwarren returned home from inspecting his ships. At the same moment, the owner of the house, Mr. Fitzwarren, who was a rich businessman, was returning home from inspecting his ships. After doing his work in the ship, he stopped and said to Dick, "Why don't you work if you need food?" At that moment, Mr. Fitzwarren stopped the cook and said to Dick Whittington, "Why don't you work?" See, it's a rhetorical question. It's a negative question. And he said, "Why don't you work if you need food?" Means if you want food, if you are hungry, if you want to have food, it is better to work. It is not good to beg. So Dick Whittington replied and said, "I would work." Again, he used the modal auxiliary would to express his wish that he wanted to work. He was ready to work. So in his words, Dick said, "I would work, but I know nobody who will give me anything to do." So Dick said, "I would like to work. It is my wish to work. I am also not lazy. But I do not know anybody here, such a person who will give me anything to do, who will hire me, who will give me some work." So Mr. Fitzwarren ordered the cook by saying, "Take him into the kitchen. Feed him first and then find some work for him." So this one was the order of Mr. Fitzwarren. What he said, "Take him into the kitchen." That's the direct order to the cook given by Mr. Fitzwarren. And again he continued and said, "Feed him first and then find some work for him." It means Mr. Fitzwarren was a kind man, and he ordered the cook to give food to Dick Whittington first, as he was so weak. And then he said, "Then after giving food, find some work for him." So that his purpose, that if we give food to Dick Whittington without any work, he may become lazy. So Dick was given a home and a living. So in this way, Dick got the place to stay and even food also. So his two difficulties were already solved. What were the difficulties? That is the place to stay, and the second one was food. He had a small corner of the attic to sleep in, and his job was to help the cook with all the pots and pans in the kitchen. See, the meaning of attic is given here. That is a very small room inside a pointed roof. So Dick was given a small corner of the attic to sleep in. And do you know what was the job of Dick Whittington? That was to help the cook with all the pots and pans in the kitchen. It means to do the work of a helper in the kitchen. Dick's life should have been much better than before, but he still had two difficulties to face. Now you may see that this life should have been better, but it was not. So why it should have been better? Because in earlier days, whether he was not having the place to sleep and he was not able to get the food also, but these two difficulties have been already solved. Though these two problems have been solved, yet he had two difficulties to face at that moment. The two difficulties were, one, where he used to sleep, there were many more mice. And the next was the temper, the nature of the cook. So these were the two difficulties he had to face at this time. The first was the attic he slept in was overrun by rats and mice. So first difficulty, that there were so many rats and mice where he used to sleep. At night they scampered all over him. It means when he slept, the rats and mice used to run here and there. They used to scamper. Scamper means ran here and there all over him and kept him awake. And that's why he was unable to sleep. He used to remain awake. After a time, he solved this problem by saving the few pennies he was paid. We will see the next part later. Thank you.